Okay, the first sequence post we're going to be talking about this week is called Doublethink, then in parentheses, choosing to be biased. It starts out with a clip excerpt, not clip is for movies, right? With an excerpt from 1984, George Orwell's classic book, which I actually still think is pretty good. I mean, it reads like an old book because it was written in the 50s, but
I think that adds to the charm, though.
Yeah.
It has like a stylistic thing going on.
Yeah.
It probably is partially just Orwell's voice and then partially just the time period that it's in.
And importantly, you can't truly appreciate 1984 until you've read 1984.
The most important part about the story.
Which, for really long-time listeners, was a short pony fic that I read during the period when HPMOR was, in its one long
hiatus.
Yeah, I was going to say hiatus, but it wasn't really a hiatus. It was a period where he was writing it and not posting what he was writing still.
Yeah.
Are there other rationalist pony fics besides Friendship is Optimal and 1984? Like, is this just a whole subgenre?
I don't know.
Yes.
I'm sure it's out there.
There's got to be more than that, yeah. And the Friendship is Optimal is actually like at least 2 parts, right?
There's 2 parts, and I think from 2 different perspectives or something.
Yeah. I just
fun.
re-listened to that while I was just doing some housework.
Cool.
It's on YouTube. Somebody podcasted it.
Oh, nice.
It's in 10 parts or something like that.
Oh, nice.
We're going to have to link it then in this episode.
Oh, yeah. We should do that.
Cool. All right. So Doublethink, it starts with that little excerpt. And then
if you can hear labored breathing, that's because Eneasz is babysitting a corgi. Yes.
And this corgi is not used to being petted, I guess, on the head or something, because he just seems incredibly happy. Anyways, the post starts with Eliezer asking, what if self-deception helps us to be happy? What if just running out and overcoming bias will make us unhappy?
Gasp.
Yes. Which, first of all, question, how do you guys feel about the whole
ignorance is bliss?
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know. I mean, actually, honestly, the first thing that came to mind when I was trying to think of do I know any dumb people that are really happy? I was like, dogs are all really happy. And dogs are kind of known for being kind of dumb.
Yeah, but dogs are also
not people.
Yeah,
they are not people.
They are pets to humans. If these dogs had to make their own way in the world, they would not be as happy. And
isn't there some really self-serving anecdotal data that intelligence is correlated with depression?
I think I have heard that. Yes.
So that seems to follow that ignorance is bliss. If you follow that very self-serving data.
Chase, go ahead.
I may be overreaching here, but I think generally, the better your starting position or the more privileged you are, the more comfortable you're going to be not having to worry about anything, just in general, and that certainly makes it easier. And dogs are pretty high on that tree.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. You were about to say.
I seem to remember a Slate Star Codex article that was showing that actually IQ correlates with all kinds of positive outcomes. I feel like I'm missing part of the nuance there. Does anyone remember specifically what claim that was? I think it was
basically what you said, that generally IQ tends to correlate with better life outcomes in every measurable respect.
Yeah. Well, I think one of them was life fulfillment too. It was happiness, quality of life, etc. So that seems to fly in the face of this.
That said, there's definitely a window, I think, for a lot of people if you're coming down from a nice, reassuring belief, unless you're able to transition immediately into a nice solace medium ground there. Good example might be people coming down from if you believe in afterlife of some sort, and then that illusion is shattered. There's, for many people, probably this window, at least, if not the rest of your life, where you're just petrified of death, right?
Yeah.
I think believing in an afterlife is probably very reassuring if you actually believe that, right?
I guess, but every believer I've met is still,
they
sad when other people die,
yeah.
and they're still, have the same avoidance of death instinct actions that everyone else does.
I think maybe a bit less than someone like us might have, because they don't sign up for cryonics. They're not, taking life extension technology news very seriously or very to heart. They're not taking preventative aging pills starting at age 30.
That's true.
Maybe some of them are. I don't know, but I don't know. I think for the most part, if I wasn't aware of whatever half the terrible shit that's been going on in the world, you mentioned, the whole topic of today's episode flew under our radar because the rest of the world is complete, dog shit.
Yeah.
If I was somehow unaware of that, I'd probably be in a happier place right now.
Well, so I have explicitly advocated for people watching less news because most of the time you can do absolutely nothing about it. There's no impact on your life aside to make you more unhappy. But that seems less like an ignorance of bliss thing and more of a focus on things that you can actually change and that will actually affect your life.
I think that's not even like the news is skewed negative anyway, so it's not even really an issue of ignorance.
It almost seems to me, yeah, you're right, because basically you're just exposing yourself to the dog shit stuff of the world, since that's what all the news is.
Like, you can look at positive news. There was, it might still exist, I don't know. For a while, I would check this Tumblr that was just positive news compilations about, like, this country now has clean drinking water, and I think that it is kind of a weird thing about our species that we tend to, I guess because we're still...
To avoid the bad stuff.
Yeah, we're
focus on,
evolved, and so we need to, have a survival mindset.
Back in the day, if you heard about bad stuff, it was happening somewhere near you and could affect you. Yeah, we try to end every episode of The Mind Killer with some sort of happy news. So to slightly offset the previous 59 minutes of shit that you've heard.
There's a subreddit called Uplifting News that I like for that reason.
Cool.
Oh, yeah.
I honestly think that, like, happiness is not correlated with intelligence. Like, there's people all over the happiness spectrums in all levels of intelligence, I have found. And I think really it just changes how you can express your various feelings. Like, people who are unhappy have a much more eloquent way of phrasing it and convincing other people that this is what life is. Life is pain. And anyone who tells you otherwise is trying to sell you something. Is much easier to sell when you have a lot of intelligence behind it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm sorry for the dog growling. He's super excited.
Every time I stop petting him, he just like nips my fingers very gently.
It's like, hey, you're falling down on the job. See, if dumb people could nip other people on the fingers gently whenever they weren't being given something nice, they'd be more happy too.
Babies got it really good. They just need to yell, and someone will just be like, "What do you need? I'll bring you anything in the world." Yeah,
assuming they have any sort of decent parents. Yeah.
All right. So
I don't know. I think the thing with intelligence is at least it sometimes helps you overcome your situations. Like, sure, dumb people sometimes.
And I think it's really related to that. The less you need to overcome your situation, the better your situation is to start. Then the more you can get away with not making optimal choices and not.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, if you're in a rich family and you're not stressed about your grades at school because your life's going to turn out fine anyway, right?
Right.
Like, you're going to land a good job, you're going to make enough money if you even need to make money. So like your level of background concern is just totally flat.
And in cases like that, it might be less beneficial to someone's happiness to really sit down and think about their life, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, someone brought up decisions. I actually was just reading some articles about generational stress, about how trauma and like chronic stress could be passed down in the genes. They've like at least been able to study it 3 generations down.
Jesus.
So there's epigenetic things that go on too, and trigger turn the genes on or off. But there's definitely a correlation between someone's grandparents were in some terrible war, and that causes actually a larger amygdala, smaller cerebellum, and like impaired decision making. So sort of the thing about, what was it? I think Chase had said, or one of you guys said, having higher IQ like helps, or better life circumstances, like kind of absorbs if you make bad decisions. I think you're also just less likely to make impulsive decisions because of all of that.
So we're getting way off on a tangent now, but this is something I want to ask you guys. I recently, in our Discord, came across this exchange where it was pointed out that nowadays we have like much more control over our reproduction than we ever have in the past. Well, in the past several decades anyway. Nowadays, not necessarily meaning like literally this year. But a lot of people are choosing simply not to have kids. And a lot of those people tend to be people who are already like kind of depressive and life hurts. And I don't want to bring kids into this world, so I'm not going to. And honestly, that was a large part of my motivation as well. And it was pointed out this is a good thing because that way people who are genetically predisposed to be unhappy will not propagate those genes into the future, and those who are disposed to be happy and have happy lives will have more children. So overall, net utility of the existing people goes up as there's more happiness. And that kind of like feels terrible, but on the other hand, like I cannot at all dispute this.
It's going to be a short-term issue anyway, because we're going to be able to have CRISPR babies. I mean, they already are
yeah, that'd
able
be cool.
to make
Right, I think
babies
at
of
least for me.
mice, etc. So you can actually like go in and pick and choose those genes. I mean, I don't know how fast that's going to roll out and whether or not, of course, it's going to. I mean, even IVF, which is actually a pretty benign procedure, like
But even
eugenics-wise, but people were freaking out for a long time when IVF came out. And that's been around for, 60 years or something now?
Yeah. Even if you can pick the genes, though, that doesn't get rid of my intuitive feeling that this world is bad and shouldn't have more humans in it. But I don't know.
I mean...
Not shouldn't have more humans in it, because objectively it should, so the human race can continue and do great things. But I don't know if I can be a part of it. Chase, you were going to say something?
No, not at all. I was just going to say, speculating on future outcomes of genetic manipulation is so far outside of my reasonable realm of knowledgeable discussion.
And like the best thing about it is that there is no government eugenics program. This is all self-selection and people doing what they think is best for themselves and their own lives.
Yeah, I've heard lots of, arguments about the idiocracy thing where people are like, oh, like the poorest, like really religious, etc. people are having the most kids. Well, and smart people who tend to be more depressed. I don't even know if any of this is true. Like, I don't know if the numbers actually show that this is correct. I know a lot of people in the rational sphere tend to be less likely to want to have kids.
I think, I don't know, it's still a fairly young demographic, but from what I have seen, it seems that the replacement levels are less, we are reproducing at less than replacement levels. But on the plus side, there's a lot of people out there that are of the rationalist mindset that haven't been exposed to rationality yet. So,
well, and part of the, it's like proselytizing, right? Yeah. So as long as you're recruiting new members at a rate faster than you're losing them. But
what if we recruit every member of humanity, though, and then everyone stops reproducing?
What?
Because we reproduce at slower than replacement rates.
I feel like if the entire world was making that rational of a judgment, and I'm not saying it's necessarily rational not to have kids, but if that's the level that we hit, then we might be equipped as a species to solve every problem we had in the 30 years before everyone died, right? So
maybe.
Also, if we achieve immortality, we won't need to replace people.
That's a good point.
But we're so far in the weeds.
Yes. So that was all the first two sentences. What he was really saying is that some people propose that true wisdom would be second order rationality, choosing when to be rational. That way you can decide which cognitive biases should govern you to maximize your happiness. We really got far afield, didn't we? Choosing when to be rational and when to be not rational, based on when it is most advantageous to be rational or not rational. And I don't know, before we continue, what do you guys feel about that?
Without obliviation, that wouldn't work.
Yeah. It's the same sort of like Pascal's wager.
Yes.
I remember hearing about that, and before I could even hear any of the more nuanced arguments about why it was dumb, immediately the person who brought it up was like, but you can't choose to believe something if you don't believe it. You can't just do that.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter. You bet me money on something. Oh, you got to believe this or don't believe it. And it's like, I can't choose to believe something that I, or maybe
you can maybe act like you believe the sky is green, but you can't actually believe it if you don't believe it.
And that's what Eliezer's talking about with first order and second order beliefs, where it's like you really in your guts believe this thing, or I guess most of my life, when I was a kid, I was religious because I was supposed to be religious, and that never. I actually remember doing doublethink a lot as a kid, where I would start to think a thing and then be like, nope.
Mm-hmm.
Like distractions, ponies, there's a dog, pretty rainbows. Or
wrong, being scared of wrong-think as a kid as an exposure to religion is kind of, I think, one of the features, which is terrifying.
Were you guys taught to be scared of wrong-think?
Well, just like what Jace was describing.
Okay, yeah.
Jace
certainly sounds like.
Yeah. I don't think I my memory of all of my childhood's so vague. I don't think so. There was some period around 10 years old, give or take 3 years, where I was concerned for my immortal soul. Maybe younger. But it, like, I don't know. It's been too long. My memory's too hazy. But I imagine that's a thing, especially, you know, if you're whatever the Bible says you shouldn't be. If you're gay or something, you'll hide from that. You have an extra inclination to hide from your identity and your orientation because you believe it's wrong, right?
Right.
I remember having these thoughts like, man, Chelsea would be like really hot as a guy. It's too bad. Just like kind of like, you know, crushing on my friend and like just doing all the same things. Like when I had a crush on a guy, like, you know, staring at them out of the corner of your eye and then like, but like just being like, too bad. She's not a guy. What if I just imagine she's a guy for a bit and then I'll imagine that we're dating? And it's just like,
Nice.
I don't know. But like you're literally told that God can read your thoughts.
Yeah.
And that you not only have to like act correctly, but you have to have the right beliefs. So like as a kid, I was just, I remember when I did believe in religion, I was mostly just mad at God a lot of the time too. Kind of resentful. I was just like, yeah, whatever. But it sort of also felt like, yeah, I mean, like look around, the world kind of sucks and things aren't fair. And then like, so yeah, it makes sense that we have this like totally like douchebag God.
that rage at God was I mean, it was huge for me too. It's really a thing about when you're on the cusp of disbelieving, because you still like feel like God is real, right? And yet you see everything that's horrible in the world, and so there's this anger, and
you're like, what the hell, God?
Yeah. It's not until you've been an atheist for a number of years that you're like, oh, there was no one there in the first place. But God, I was so mad for so long. And then like that anger transferred once I accepted God wasn't real from God to religion instead, since they had convinced me that there was this God.
I think my thoughts kind of went back and forth. Like, it's really hard to regenerate what it was like. It's hard to even remember. Like, I think when I was really little, I did believe in religion, but only because I had no other models and everybody else said that they believed it and acted like it. Like, you know, everybody that I knew, which was like my immediate family members and friends.
You were raised basically irreligious, right?
I was raised non-denominational. Some version of Christian God is real,
right?
But we didn't go to church. I was never told this is the way it is or something explicitly. But my parents were vaguely religious in a way that imprinted a bit. The analogy I use is like I believed God existed as a 10-year-old the same way that like I believed Japan existed. Like I'd never been there. I'd seen pictures. People told me it was real.
Yeah, you have no reason to think it doesn't.
Exactly. You just believe it because you were told that as a child. Which I think there's probably an evolutionary advantage to believing your parents.
Yes.
The 7-year-old who wants to investigate whether or not the lake really contains alligators doesn't go on to have children.
But also, what kind of crazy conspiracy thinking is it to believe that the entire world has conspired to convince you of this all-powerful person that doesn't actually exist?
Well, but as a kid, you're not thinking the whole world's convincing you, right? It's just your whole world is your parents.
Yeah, but you would have to think like a conspiracy theorist to doubt that as a kid.
Oh, sure. Yeah, exactly.
I remember an early like deconversion moment being like realizing there are other religions and realizing that there are people, you know, like they say that in some sects of Christianity, if you have a baby and the baby dies and the baby hasn't been baptized yet, it's like, well, that baby is going to hell.
Yes.
Or, you know, purgatory.
Yeah.
There's like, and then like there's all the weird wiggle things that people would do too. I was like, well, they don't. Okay, I know it says this, but there's a special purgatory just for unbaptized babies. That's actually really nice. It's not heaven, but like, or like, I remember the Rainbow Bridge, which is still a thing that a lot of people talk about, where like it's animal heaven, where your pets like live, and then you get to like cross the Rainbow Bridge and be reunited with all your pets.
Oh my God, I'd never heard of that. That is so adorable.
There's like a whole book about it. I think I was in Sam's Club. I remember being stuck in Sam's Club a lot of my childhood, just reading the books out of boredom, and they were all like weird shit like that.
Anyway, you should the post ends up with you should wonder, I think, whether the happiness of stupidity is optimal. If it is, did we skip a piece?
Yeah, there was a thing I wanted to say before that.
Oh yeah, grab it.
Okay. Well, so he says that in order for you to be able to choose which beliefs you want to, which biases you want to have or not to be more happy, you would first need a good model of reality so you can extrapolate the consequences of both rationality and irrationality. And then you would have to forget that you had done that afterwards. So you can't know the consequences of being biased until you've debiased yourself. And at that point, it's too late because there is no obliviate spell.
Oh, I do remember an instance of trying to make myself believe something as a kid. It was not religion, but do you guys remember the show Cat Dog from the 90s?
No.
Yeah.
People who, okay, it was this like Nickelodeon show, and the main character was like it was the like head and torso of a cat fused to the head and torso of a dog.
It's less horrifying than it sounds, but the question of where's the poop come out is still an open question.
Only slightly
There's
less
all kinds of
horrifying.
weird cartoon logic about like the physiology. I guess it was clever, but like there's this sort of dichotomy that like I guess is in a lot of fiction, and especially a lot of cartoons. You think of like SpongeBob and Squidward, where you've got the happy idiot. Like Dog was the happy idiot character, and then Cat was the Squidward, like always like being gloomy but like intelligent. And I remember like a lot of cartoons hurt as a kid because I always identified with like the gloomy one that was always the butt of the joke. Like I identify so much with Squidward now when I'm watching SpongeBob, and it's like, oh man. And for a bit I was like, I'm gonna try to be a dog person. It's like I'm gonna like Dog, and I tried really hard, and I was just like, nope, can't identify with this character.
I think there is a way you could choose to do the second part where you only keep the biases that are helpful to you. If you never actually did the first order rationality, so you didn't find out which ones are helpful and which ones are harmful, but you just trust the rest of society, everyone around you, to have done that work instead and just adopt their beliefs and their biases. Then,
we should just hire a rationalist handler that'll only teach us the things that'll make us happier.
That would work, but you have to trust your handler. And then, the who watches the watchers thing comes along.
Well, I mean, you're basically a pet, but...
I mean, isn't that kind of what religion is anyway? People being like, we have looked at everything already. This is the correct way to do things.
No reason to look any further.
Yep. If you look any further, it'll make you sad and ruin your life.
I think that's also the plot of 1984.
It is a plot of 1984.
I mean, like totalitarianism being sort of like, yes, we the government know what's best for everyone. Shut up. We'll do what we say. Believe what we believe.
But it is not portrayed as a good thing.
Yeah, and I think it like...
Whereas we're trying to get to like the happy utopia where you do have a benevolent AI god fixing all the things and telling you don't look into that hole over there. It'll make you sad.
Well, I still don't think I'd 1984.
And what did you say, Chase?
Nothing. I was just talking about the AI god.
Oh.
I mean, but like, what if you could live in a Melos without knowing about the kid in the basement?
Yeah, I mean, that sounds like the happy scenario, right? But don't they make everyone see it?
They do, yeah.
Yeah. Who knows if that's required for the ritual to keep working or not, right?
That's why it's called Those Who Walk Away.
Yeah.
And I always felt I would have been one of the ones that walked away.
Me too. I think everyone thinks that of themselves, though. That's kind of the point, right?
I know myself. I mean, like, I do radical honesty because I know that I can't, like, keep secrets. I just blurt stuff out. And I also know that I have to, like, even if I know that, like, finding out the truth about something is going to hurt, I still like can't just... I think that's like probably the mindset that's like that causes people to be more inclined to seek out rationality and this kind of thing.
Yeah. Wanting to know the truth, be the master of your own destiny kind of thing.
Yeah.
Do
you want to end up with the final part?
Yeah. I guess there's one other thing before that. You can't know the consequences of being... Oh, you already read that part. Yeah. You should wonder, I think, whether the happiness of stupidity is optimal, if it is the most happiness that a human can aspire to, but it matters not. That way is closed to you, if it was ever open. All that is left to you now is to aspire to such happiness as a rationalist can achieve. I think it may prove greater in the end.
Yeah, and
that's good writing.
It is good writing, and I think I also agree with the sentiment. Like when I was saying, intelligent people can really expound on their depression much better and make it seem more reasonable and affect more people. I think you can do the same thing with happiness, where you can just appreciate the happiness on a more in-depth level and share it with others on a almost deeper level, I guess, than if you didn't have all the background and the work and the thinking put into it.
Yeah, I think so.
I think it's like when you get into any art form, whether it be movies or music or whatever, at first you just like it because it is enjoyable and cool and appealing. And like the more you get into the geekery of how this is made and how it can be appreciated, and you watch all the videos about people deconstructing stuff, the more you're like, wow, there is like so many more levels of how to appreciate this stuff. And you tend to start liking things in a more and different way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's something there. There's a deeper capacity for appreciation of something that way. Because, I mean, that's how I feel about religion too, where there's the idea of this very simple universe, or like, but then there's like actually understanding how things work, and it's so weird and cool. Like quantum mechanics, like cellular mechanics, genetics, like there's so much to learn. And if you're like somebody who's very curiosity driven, that would be like a very small world to live in. If I was like, I don't know, European peasant.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like, stop asking questions about everything. Well, that would be a pretty unfulfilling life, because it's just like, okay, I guess everything is exactly what it looks like, and everything that people tell me is exactly right.
Just the peasant lifestyle seems it's
I'll just
really
keep
bad
hammering
in
this
general.
thing. That's what peasants do, right? They hammer a thing. Thinking of Monty Python, where the peasants were just sort of like...
Just keep hammering the dirt until food comes out of it.
I think they were just like grabbing piles of mud and just sort of throwing the mud around.
There's some lovely filth over here.
Yeah. It's still so funny.
Yeah.
All right, we got to roll through these if we're going to get to our topic of the day, right?
Yes, we are. Jesus.
Should
No,
we do,
don't sweat it. It's fun. The second one is why I'm Blooking, and all it says is that he's writing a book. Is there anything else to add?
It's one of those portmanteaus,
Yeah,
like vlogging.
He basically says that he has a very hard time like trying to write formal papers and like a big formal book, but he has no trouble at all like writing emails and posting on forums and shit. And that just comes out as fast as he can type. So he decided, let's go ahead and just post a blog post every day. And afterwards, I will edit it all up, curate it into a book. And that will be how I write this thing. And that is literally exactly what he did, writing AI
To zombies.
Rationality AI to Zombies is basically the curation and reshuffling of all these posts that we are going through. We just like to see the sausage made, so that's why we are going through this part rather than the official final released version.
It's fun to recognize that, like, hey, I have this problem where I can't do it this way, but I still want to do it, so I'm going to do it the way that works for me and just make it work.
He could not do it. There's a really common writer's thing where he was saying, I just write very slowly, and specifically because I'm thinking a lot about every sentence, I'm going back and tweaking it and editing it.
Mm-hmm.
That's why, like, when I was trying to do NaNoWriMo, it's the, like, write a novel in a month. Oh man, that's coming up, isn't it?
It's next
It's
month.
in November. Oh no.
I've never done NaNoWriMo. I just can't write fast enough.
Well, actually, like, the only way I was able to do it was using it's a free web tool called Write or Die.
Oh, I know this one.
Yeah, and that's
if you stop writing for a long enough time, it deletes everything you've written, right?
Or it'll start slowly deleting from like the back forward, or there's a bunch of different modes. I found the most value out of the one that would just, if you stop writing after a few seconds, it'll slowly start to turn your screen red and make a terrible sound. And you have to keep writing in order to make it stop.
Cool.
There's a positive one too, where it was like, if you keep writing for a long enough time, you'll hear like nice noises and see pictures of kittens or stuff like that. That one didn't work for me though. The punishment was more motivational.
Cool. So this one's short, not much to say. The one thing I wanted to point out before we moved on was that I think I view this as a strength of rationality, of like when you're trying to do something and it's not working, but it's the traditional way of doing stuff, maybe like stopping and looking around and seeing what works for you that's kind of similar that you can hack into using as a workaround, like just doing things weird. No respected academic would just start posting blog posts every day and as a kind of method of writing their next big academic book. But he did, and it worked really, really well for him.
Yeah,
so doing things weird is a thing that we can harness.
I think actually that was also the purpose of writing Harry Potter and the Methods of Rationality, where it was like trying to write this like academic stuff wasn't really generating a lot of momentum. What if I make it in the form of a Harry Potter fan fiction?
Yeah.
And that turned out to not only be like very motivational for cranking out all this stuff, but then also, attracted the fan base, or I guess the community as it exists now. Most people were introduced, or most people that I know of. And I think he did a poll too. Yeah. It was a very large percentage of people that actually found the
it was somewhere around like half of people.
Yeah.
Came to it through HPMOR, or HP More, as everyone else says. The people who don't have to, spell out the name of the website for people to go to.
Hipmore.
Hipmore, yeah. I see. If I were trying to go to hipmore.com, I'd be HIPMORE, and just end up at some place that sells hip clothing.
And then the last post was Planning Fallacy, which I don't know if we have to cover all the stuff in it, because I think most people are familiar with it.
Oh, we should absolutely cover it, because, there's no hipmore.com?
Oh man, take it.
Weird. It's too late. Now that I typed it into a browser, someone else has already grabbed it to squat it. I didn't think there wouldn't be a hipmore.com.
You should just redirect to much now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Spend $3 a month on that.
Planning fallacy.
Yeah, not everyone that listens to this has read the sequences, so we should cover it.
That's fair.
No,
All right.
planning fallacy though is my worst thing ever. I suck at this. This is the rationality skill that I'm the worst at, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really hard to overcome this. It's a cognitive bias where you just sort of, it sounds so dumb when you say it too. It's like when people are trying to think of how long it'll take to do something, for example, they'll think about the optimal scenario. Yeah. Oh yeah, there's this one time where I wrote an essay in 3 hours the night before. So that's clearly my norm. Oh yeah, the traffic usually isn't that bad that time of day. I've made it in 15 minutes one time, so probably I could do that in 15 minutes. And then you just come up with this completely over-optimistic estimate.
You always just think of how long does it take you to drive from A to B, and you don't think how often is there an accident or construction or something along the way, which actually is very frequently.
Yeah.
So you want me to read the first several pieces?
Yeah.
It starts out with this study that was made by researchers who are named, but I won't read the names. Researchers asked for estimated times by which the students thought it was 50%, 75%, and 99% probable that their personal projects would be done. 13% of subjects finished the project by the time that they had assigned a 50% probability. 19% finished by the time they assigned a 75% probability, and only 45%, less than half of them, finished by the time of their 99% probability level. The researchers say the results for the 99% probability level are especially striking. Even when asked to make a highly conservative forecast, a prediction that they felt virtually certain that they would fulfill, students' confidence in their time estimates far exceeds their accomplishments. And it says that the reason for this is asking subjects... and another surprising finding, asking subjects for their prediction based on the realistic best guess scenarios and asking subjects for their hoped for best case scenarios produced indistinguishable results. So their best guess was the same guess as, what is the absolutely wildly most optimistic guess that you can make. And it's because they said ultimately it came down to generally people didn't envision unexpected delays or unforeseen catastrophes. They just looked through things like, what would this look like normally? And the lesson is that normal is never what normally happens. Chase, when have you been screwed by the planning fallacy?
Every time I've ever planned anything in my life.
Best answer.
Well, I'm going to quickly say, do we want to cover how he said is the best way to get around this?
Yeah, that was actually what I wanted to highlight, if nothing else. Where was it at the end?
Yeah, inside versus outside perspective.
I want to kind of say these backwards because so the last 2 paragraphs. So there's a fairly reliable way to fix the planning fallacy if you've done something broadly similar to a reference class of previous projects. Just ask how long similar projects have taken in the past without considering any of the special properties of this project. Better yet, ask an experienced outsider how long similar projects have taken. You'll get back an answer that sounds hideously long and clearly reflects no understanding of the special reasons why this particular task will take less time. This answer is true. Deal with it. Yeah, or I'm just dating Phoenix, who has the kind of common autistic thing of getting very upset about when things are planned a certain way and then they're not going that way. So I'll be I'll be home in 15 minutes, and they'll just text back in all caps, planning fallacy, and I'll be I'll be home in 30 minutes.
Nice.
I think one other way is to run your plan by a group of experienced people.
Project managers.
Well, no, I was going to say explicitly not project managers or product owners at a tech job, but your team.
Oh.
You want to leave the bureaucrats out of it. And when your team sits down to plan stuff, you say, okay, well, this doesn't sound so bad. They're like, no, I've been there. It takes for fucking ever. Double your estimate on how long you think it'll take. That I find pretty valuable to roughly predicting the, time complexity of accomplishing a task. And if you're uncertain, just pad your time guess a bunch. If you don't know, if you've never remodeled a kitchen, don't read online one thing that says it should only take $1,000. No, I'm going to just go ahead and assume that this person has no idea what they're talking about. It's going to take me 3 months and $5,000. Then at the very least, you're positively surprised when it only takes you 2 months and $3,000, right?
Yeah.
So if you don't know and you can't ask experts, just pad your guess a bunch.
Yeah, the outside view is what it is called, when instead of looking at the particular details of what you actually want to accomplish, you just look at how long similar tasks took in the past and then think it'll be roughly the same amount of time.
Yeah,
Right.
don't assume the happy path.
Yeah.
And when I initially started, independently realizing how bad planning fallacy was, and initially came up with solutions, like my initial reflex is, the padding, just pad it 2x, but it can get difficult when you get into like recursive padding. Like, okay, well, walking to my car is only 30 seconds, so I'll double that to a minute. But in the wider context of a project, it adds up in weird ways.
Yeah, a drive to a friend's house, if your phone says it takes 32 minutes, maybe give yourself 40, pad it a little bit, because phones are pretty good at planning that sort of thing. They know about traffic and all this and that. But, if it's a month-long project, it's hard really to get a good number down, which is the other thing is just to bake in some room for flexibility. Like that's why I was mentioning leave your product directors out of your decision process, because they'll say, hey, we need this by the end of November. And it's like, well, then you're not going to get it, because we can't commit to shipping this, immediately without all the details and stuff planned in advance. And even then it's hazy.
I was thinking
you could tell us what you want or when you want it, but not both.
I was thinking of there's a rat fic about building the Death Star.
Yes.
You know which one that is?
It's a great one. It's Tools of Destruction, I think.
I thought, yeah.
I have been looking for that one. Is that the one about the whole project management? And
when I was thinking of project managers, it was this person who I was thinking of, where they're like, no, like
In fact, I did a.
I was going to say, didn't you voice that one?
I did. Instruments of Destruction is the
There
name,
you go.
and it is by Alexander Wales, same guy who did Metropolitan Man. Yeah, that was really fun.
I've actually been looking for that for like probably months to years.
Oh, you're welcome then.
The post ends. It doesn't actually end with this, but there's a great example of the outside view. Says on a cross-cultural study, they found that Japanese students expected to finish their essays 10 days before deadline. They actually finished 1 day before deadline. Asked when they had previously completed similar tasks, they responded 1 day before deadline. This is the power of the outside view over the inside view. And I got to say, I am consistently impressed by how accurate the phone GPSs are with estimating my arrival time. And I think it's just entirely because the phone doesn't know how long something is supposed to take. It just compares every other route, every other person that drove that route recently, and says, yeah, that's how long it took them. It'll take you the same amount of time.
Exactly. It gives you the outside view anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Doesn't know about the inside view at all.
All right. Are we ready to dive in?
I believe we are.
Oh, wait. Before we got to say what we're doing next week.
Oh, yes. Did anyone else have anything to say about any of these posts, and the last one specifically?
I don't think so.
Okay. Every time I hear the word planning fallacy, I hear Hermione Granger say, "Aw, looks like you fell prey to the planning fallacy." Because that was not at all the way I heard that line being delivered in my head. And then she gave it to me, and I was like, oh, that's perfect.
Yeah.
That is so good.
The sarcastic.
Yeah. All right. For next time, we are reading Kahneman's Planning Anecdote.
Kahneman.
Thank you. Kahneman's Planning Anecdote, which probably should have been in this week, but 3 is really our limit. Also, Conjunction Fallacy and Conjunction Controversy, in parentheses, or How They Nail It Down. So those 3 posts. And as always, the links are included in the show notes and at our website, thebasinconspiracy.com.
Woot woot.